First off, I'd like to say that it was never my intention to do a top 10 list of my favorite Ranma 1/2 episodes, but people demanded it after I put out my top 10 worst episode list back in December. All together now, it's a giant antlion! However, I feel that another one of my previous videos, the top 10 moments of Ranma 1/2, may have given away too much as far as my favorite episodes go. After all, a great episode has great moments. So what I am doing is coming up with a concise top 10 of my personal favorite storylines in the Ranma 1/2 anime. This includes all episodes, OAVs, movies, and multi-episode story arcs, but excludes character origin stories. As for why, well, take for example one of my favorite episodes, Enter Ryoga, the Eternal Lost Boy. If that were to appear on the top 10, it would be there because Ryoga is such a kick-ass character, and not so much about the plot of the episode, which is basically synonymous to the character's background. See what I mean? Yeah, I know it's confusing, but nonetheless, we're all just going to have to deal with my personal top 10 Ranma 1/2 anime storylines. Kuno and Nabiki are one of the most natural pairings in Ranma 1/2, as they are both a little pompous, a tad bit sinister. He has money, and she loves money. A blind man could see that these two belong together. The closest we got to this fabled union was the episode Kuno and Nabiki, read all about it. A fortune teller named Gendo visits the noble house of Kuno, and predicts the first woman Kuno sees walk across a specific bridge will be the one he's destined to be with. Kuno nervously expects Akane or the pigtailed girl, but instead ends up locking eyes with the abrasive Nabiki Tendo. Kuno is then forced, believe it or not, to abandon all lust for his two would-be concubines and try his damnedest to get to know Nabiki better. One thing I love is when Ranma 1/2 makes a lesser character into the focal point, and one of their most interesting character studies in that vein is Tatewaki Kuno. His episodes play out like an evil version of Richie Rich. Throw in underutilized character Nabiki Tendo, and you've got a gold mine. Although the animation in this episode could be better, the plot helps you look past all that. And lastly, the fortune teller Gendo is a trip. I wish he were a bigger character so I could profile him someday. Kuno and Nabiki, read all about it. A very deserving number 10. A mysterious prince abducts Akane. Akane is forced to relate to her captor, peel back the layers of his complex personality, and find some good in him. All the while, Ranma and company rush to her rescue, but standing in their way is a flock of unique adversaries, each with their own specific powers. Even with a description that detailed, it is still impossible to decipher which of the two Ranma movies it describes, as the plots are generally identical. But it's Ranma 1/2 the movie too, Ni-Hao My Concubine, that has so much more going for it. The cool locale, good balance for all the show regulars, and way more awesome action sequences. This movie is a pure joy from start to finish. It introduces so many cool ideas that fit snugly into the Ranma mythos, from the disappearing island of Togenkyo and its gender-changing waters, to the bridal competition which has all the series' females practically ripping each other's hair out, to the half-human, half-animal crazies whose gimmicks are right out of Ninja Scroll. This movie almost seemed like an apology for all of Movie 1's errors. And as far as emotional movie moments go, it doesn't get much more powerful than the huge sacrifice Ranma has to make for Akane in the end. Ranma 1/2 the movie 2, Ni-Hao My Concubine, in at number 9. When he first stepped onto the scene, Sasuke Sarogakure did not leave a great impression. Bad animation was just starting to rear its ugly head, and Sasuke was an easy-to-draw character who didn't fit in with the rest of the cast. It would take a miracle to make this lump of clay into something great, and that miracle was number 8, Les Miserables of the Kuno estate. In this unique storyline, Sasuke is forced out on the streets after a fight with the Kuno clan, and into the home of the Tendos, where he transitions from devious little toad to living, breathing, feeling human being. As he forces himself to adapt to his new life of comfort, Tatewaki Kuno slowly becomes an emotional wreck without his loyal retainer, and eventually must swallow his pride and beg for Sasuke's return. This episode is a masterful piece of writing. It humanized Sasuke, who up to now was just an emotionless blob. further explained the bizarre connection between he and Kuno, and has more laughs than the whole rest of Season 3 combined. 2 moments that I totally forgot about when putting together my top 10 Ranma moments list. The emotional reunion between Sasuke and Kuno, and the hilarious machine gun fight between Tatewaki and Kodachi, both in this action-packed storyline. Okay, I'll admit it. I'm a sucker for a good tearjerker. And this storyline, Boy Meets Mom, which incidentally is the final episode of Ranma 1/2, delivers in spades. Up to this moment, we had barely heard mention of Ranma's mom, only in a stinker episode that turned out to be a tease. And this episode revealed her story and why it's so taboo. Ranma and Genma are actually in hiding from Nodoka, for they have promised to commit ritual suicide if Ranma hadn't completed his passage into manhood by the time they reunited. When Nodoka comes nosing around, Ranma and Genma don the ultimate disguises and slip through safely, but Ranma, never having known his mother, feels a deep inner conflict and must resist the urge to appear before her. As usual, there are copious amounts of humor flitted about, but the core story is gripping, dramatic, even a bit sad. I don't want to ruin it for everyone, but the story's closing moments really tug on your heartstrings. You really feel for this harried mother and wayward son. While I admit wholeheartedly that Ranma 1/2 the series deserved a much better send-off than this, at least the series ended with an episode with some heart, rather than some goofball joke. You did good, guys. See ya! As I am doing this, I'll admit that I was a bit hasty in putting down Season 3. There are some gleaming diamonds in that rough. Not to be confused with JW Studios' upcoming Ranma's Declaration of Motherhood. Season 3's Am I Pretty? Ranma's Declaration of Womanhood is one for the ages. They don't get much more basic than the amnesia episode. It's one of the biggest cliches in all of TV and animation. But just imagine Ranma Saotome in his female form, getting amnesia and forgetting he's really a boy. The idea takes a whole new spin. Ranma takes a little bump on the head, and his whole world becomes skewed. All of a sudden, he's shopping for dresses, preaching nonviolence, and all-out PMSing. And things get really fucked up once he turns back into a boy. You gotta give props to Sarah Strange for some impressive voice acting. For those keeping score, that's a girl doing the voice of a guy who thinks he's a girl. Makes your head spin, don't it? This storyline makes way for endless sight gags, such skeevy, uncomfortable moments that you just have to laugh at. A simple idea, a brilliant idea. Am I Pretty? Ranma's Declaration of Womanhood lands a number 6 on the countdown.